Hello, everyone. We're starting a new series of talks, the study of the Ten Sefirot with Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello. Hello. So let's start with our first lesson today and the study of the Ten Sefirot, written by the great Kabbalist Baal HaSulam. This is already for advanced students, even though that I saw that the first part is very basic, very fundamental. The first items, they're very, how to say, on the one hand, they're for advanced students. On the other hand, he gives a complete explanation about the approach to the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah as a whole. So, just a few words about the structure of the book itself, if you may. The book of the study of the Ten Sefirot is written by Baal HaSulam and is written according to the book of the Tree of Life of ARI, in which practically the entire foundation of the wisdom of Kabbalah is explained from beginning to end. The book, Etz Chaim, the Tree of Life itself, is a non-simple book, of course, all the more for beginners, but Baal HaSulam wrote a commentary, and in his commentary, it is already possible to somehow find your way in the wisdom of Kabbalah within the first few years of your study. He wrote two scrutinies. The one is Ol Pnimi, inner light, and besides that, he wrote an introduction to the study of the Ten Sefirot, a commentary to the Tree of Life, to the book, the Tree of Life. That's how it's called, the Tree of Life. I think that we should simply start reading. Yeah, we'll read the original from the Tree of Life, and then we'll read Baal HaSulam's clarifications. Yeah, let's start and we'll see how to go. So the book itself starts, it exists in Russian, English. It starts with the words, know that before the emanated beings were emanated, these are the words of the ARI, a Kabbalist from the 16th century, and the created beings created. An upper simple light has filled the entire reality. There was no vacant place such as empty air and space, but everything was filled with that simple, boundless light, called the light of Ein Sof. Well, that is the beginning of creation, meaning here it speaks before the creation. Before creation itself, there was something interesting, an interesting substance called simple upper light that fills the whole of reality. And immediately there are questions like, what is simple light? What reality does it fill? What happened before it filled this reality? What was it in and of itself? What does it mean that there was no vacant space, but everything was filled with that upper light? And he underlines that there was no vacant place such as empty air and space, but everything was filled with that simple, boundless light. And that simple, boundless light, as he writes, it did not have a quality of, it had no beginning or end, but everything was this one simple light called the light of endlessness, of Ein Sof. And there are many questions here, many things that it's hard to grasp. I prepared several questions. Very good. Questions is the best. So, after what the ARI wrote, there's the scrutiny or commentary by Baal HaSulam. Really, without Baal HaSulam, these are beautiful words, but it's unclear what is he saying. And so, he starts his commentary, Baal HaSulam. We must remember that the entire wisdom of Kabbalah is founded on spiritual matters that do not take up time or space. They're not subject to change or absence, and all changes that are spoken of in the wisdom do not imply that the first form becomes absent and is replaced by a different form. So the question is, what is this spiritual reality in which there's no time, no space? Where does it happen? How to work with this information? I want for it to be very practical, not philosophical. A person read this. What is he supposed to do with it? The Creator has created a desire. And this desire, and he filled this desire with what it desires. The desire itself is called place. And what it desires is called fulfillment. Meaning, from the Creator come two substances. The one is place, desire, and the other is fulfillment. Fulfillment is called light. That fulfills that desire, which feels itself empty. And being filled with light feels itself as filled in wholeness and perfection. And out of these two substances, place and its fulfillment, consists all of creation. And how should I depict it? That it happened once or it's going on now? The best is to depict that it happened once, like he says. Know that before all the emanations were emanated and the created beings were created, there was a simple upper light that filled the whole of reality. And what is that reality? It's that place. Afterwards, he explains that it is the desire to feel the light as a fulfillment, and the light itself, its quality is to fulfill the desire in order to delight it. So it all happened, we know about the theory of the Big Bang, before everything. Before the physical reality, before it appeared as we know it, of course. And then he writes, continues Baal HaSulam, his scrutiny, which is called inner light, or pnimi in Hebrew. It is difficult for beginners, for they perceive matters by means of corporeal boundaries of time, space, change, and exchange. However, the authors only used those as signs to point to their upper roots. It was very important for him to give us the right approach to the study, if you can elaborate. Here, we nonetheless have to explain that we're not talking about place, like in our world, or the fulfillment of that place, like in our world, even though that this is how we'll depict it to ourselves. We can't escape these depictions of ours, but at least that we will somehow separate ourselves from the way we depict it, and that we'll contemplate a bit on what is place. Place is the desire created that is filled by some kind of fulfillment, meaning that which that desire desires, and it is filled by it, with it. These two substances, the desire and its fulfillment, they are what exist. Desire is called place, and its fulfillment, that's how it's called, fulfillment or light. And then he says, he talks about some upper roots. The authors try to use all these words that we're reading about in order to explain upper root. What are upper roots, lower ones? The thing is that we need to understand that these states that Kabbalists describe for us, they feel it because they have acquired a new ability to sense, and therefore that's how they tell us about it, for it to be as close as possible to us, that we'll be able to somehow envision or imagine it. But really, such depictions, substances, objects, are things that we cannot depict in any way. We simply can't, but at least somewhat, that there's a desire, and that desire is filled with what it desires. And this state of the desire and the fulfillment together are called the upper world, meaning that which exists as the very first phase of creation. He continues and writes, "For this reason, I will make an effort to give every word its spiritual identity detached of space, time, and change. It is upon the readers to memorize the meaning of these words thoroughly, for it is impossible to repeat them every time." Therefore, besides what he wrote, he also wrote a dictionary with questions and answers, and he says that we have to memorize all of these meanings. What is light? What is desire? Because he can't go back to that every time. The thing is that, well, there's no way for us to take a person, may he be the wisest, whoever, no matter what criteria he possesses, and to explain to him what the upper world is, the world of endlessness, light, being fulfilled by light. It's impossible for that. A person needs to come to that after working on himself for an extended period of time. Therefore, Kabbalistic books, at first, that's why they seem so unclear, that it's hard to grasp, nothing to grab hold of. And as you read them, the person who studies Kabbalah this upper light that was created, well, it's practically desire. The desire gradually starts feeling, what is this about? As a result of studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, anyone who studies the wisdom of Kabbalah, as a result of the light that works on them, as a result of the studies, starts gradually depicting more and more, what is that place? What are all these things that we're talking about? What actually does the great Kabbalist ARI want to tell us, pass on to us? So if I correctly understand, there's a new approach invented by the ARI here, continued by Baal HaSulam, meaning when they wrote about the entire structure of creation and the potential in which it exists. For them, it was reality. They attained it. But for us, this is in potential, upper roots, and when we start to correctly read these texts with the right intention, the right approach to the study, then there are a few components here. Then we draw those forces that are embedded in those states, meaning not in the letters themselves, but in these states. And this way, that book works on us, and that's the approach to the study. Exactly. And so he's asking us to memorize, study and memorize. He can't go back every time to these definitions, so we have to study and memorize them. Yeah, and that's why Baal HaSulam, he put together a vocabulary, a dictionary for each part of the study of the Ten Sefirot. We need to use this dictionary every time and remind ourselves what is the correct definition of each Kabbalistic term. That's probably why the wisdom of Kabbalah was hidden, because there was no key, no approach until Ari wrote about it. Baal HaSulam explained it. That's why they hid Kabbalah. Yeah, before the Ari, Kabbalah was practically hidden. Starting with the Ari, Kabbalists that study it start appearing, write different commentaries on it, and somehow the wisdom of Kabbalah begins to be heard in the world. And starting with Baal HaSulam, meaning 400 or 500 years went by between the ARI and Baal HaSulam. In that time, of course, many things happen, but really, the only one who was really able to reveal what the Ari wrote or to reveal the Ari, was Baal HaSulam. We'll talk about how the soul of the Ari was impregnated in him, and this is how he was able to write a commentary to the works of the Ari. Okay, he continues and writes. He has of deciphers what the Ari wrote. He says that, know that before the emanated beings were emanated and the created beings were created, the upper simple light had filled the entire reality. And he explains that everything that is written in the wisdom of Kabbalah does not talk about the essence of the Creator whatsoever, but only about the light that comes from Him. What's the difference between these two? Well, the Creator is the source, and what comes from Him is the light, called light. How does a person grasp that? Well, man can grasp the light, meaning it is not our physical light, it is some kind of emanation that comes from the Creator. And when a person starts reading, then the influence of the light over the person gradually makes him similar to the Creator, meaning the light bears a special energy in it, a special quality that whoever it works on becomes similar to the Creator. And it is expressed in what? In man's qualities, that suddenly he feels, how he changes, how he sees the surrounding world and the upper one. What are these qualities? The qualities that man receives from the influence of the upper light are the qualities of bestowal and love. So suddenly a person loves everyone, or well, it's not suddenly, but it's gradually, but he gradually starts loving everyone. Yeah. He starts feeling the whole of creation, everything, including everything around us. He starts feeling it as belonging to it all, because the light that works and creates all of this is one. And therefore, man who attains this upper light attains everything as one whole created by the light. Love toward whom? Other people. First and foremost, toward the source of the light, the Creator. So again, when a person studies this book that we'll study, at the end of the teaching, this quality of love toward the Creator will appear in us. Possibly, that's how it's supposed to be, but not immediately. Well, we have time. Or he writes that there is no time. Then he says that this light filled the whole of reality, and he starts explaining. It is seemingly perplexing, for it speaks of the time before the worlds were created. Thus, which reality exists here that the upper light should fill? The thing is that all the worlds and all the souls that exist and that are destined to be created with all their incidents until the end of their correction are all included in Ein Sof, endlessness, in their full measure and glory. The thing is that the upper light that fills the whole of reality bears in it entirely all the information about that which was, is, and will be, and it all gradually appears before us, and this is what we call our world. And in general, in the beginning of creation, everything is filled with this one uniform light, meaning the complete and full emanation of the Creator toward His created beings. So there's some kind of thought of creation in which everything's embedded. Yeah, even the end state. Absolutely everything. Everything. So everything is predetermined, no free will whatsoever. If everything is pre-made, who told you that there is freedom of choice? Well, actually, no one. So live your life that way, calmly, freely. We need to scrutinize all these matters, and then the ability to understand, is there choice, isn't there, will appear in us, what is time, place, etc. And then he says, thus there are two rudiments we should discern in the reality before us. They are fixed and exist in Ein Sof, with their full measure and glory, how they are arranged and cascade and are renewed before us after the first restriction and the five worlds, etc., etc. Meaning that when the light, upper light, filled everything, which is the initial state of creation, there was no time, space, lack, motion, but as he writes, infinite, endless light that has no beginning and no end that filled everything. What lack are we talking about here? Oh, well, the lack does not exist yet. But since creation wishes for the created beings besides him to exist, and so that they will somehow change. Therefore, the lack was created and appeared a state in which the light begins to disappear, leaving a certain empty space around it. And that empty space is called desire, or created beings, or creation. So he describes here 4 phases, the last already being called creation. So by creation, he means a place or desire in which there is no light. Yes. Or, yeah, that's how it is. A desire that feels only itself. Only itself. This is the initial state of creation. Can we say that we're a part of that desire? Yeah? And that's why we feel only ourselves and don't feel others as a result of that? Yeah? There he talks, afterwards, he says that there was no vacant space in the form of empty air, but there are 2 categories. There's the light of Hochma and the light of Hassadim. What is that? The light then appears in its 2 main emanations. The first is the light of Hochma, which is a light that fulfills creation according to the fundamental initial desire, the desire to receive pleasure that exists in all of creation. That desire is given to the created beings to begin with from the Creator himself, and then the created being chooses that it also wishes to be fulfilled by a special light called the light of Hassadim, which is the light of bestowal, of love to the Creator. The light light of bestow, light of equivalence of form with the Creator. Then he says that there was no beginning and no end. How exactly? There was no time? Meaning nothing changed. And when the desire appeared, time appeared? Not yet. Not yet. For this, there's need for the desire to start feeling itself in a certain state. And these states in the desire will start changing. And they would give the desire some kind of qualities of its own, so that the desire will be able to differentiate one state from another, and then a state of change from one stage to another will appear in it, and that would characterize time. When does time appear? Well, it's when the desire starts feeling that upon it there are certain changes that take place in it, on it. Changes in the desire are characterized as time, meaning were there no changes, we would not sense time. So it's a subjective feeling of each of us. Yeah, of course. So we can say that time is a change of states. Yes. And in our physical world, where there no change, we do not feel that there is any time. So we can say that there's no time in spirituality, but there's change in states. Yeah. And in our world, we feel that, yes, there is time, even our state. It's because we exist. It's because our organism exists, and it's sometimes, and it moves all the time, internally, externally. It influences, is influenced, and therefore we feel all of these changes as the boundaries of time that we exist in. So, in spirituality, if I perform no actions by myself consciously, then my states do not change, and therefore it says that there's no time. And in our physical world, it doesn't matter. I went to sleep, I do something, I don't, one way or another. Changes happen, well, let's call it instinctively, automatically, and therefore there is a time in there is a sense in our organism of time. Yeah, because the changes occur unconsciously, let's say. True. Interesting. Okay, and we're already finishing. So what is endlessness? He explains later on about endlessness. Endlessness, it is something that exists in time, place, depending on what kind of definitions are we using here. Endlessness is that which has no end, actually. Which is endless? If I want to say about something, about some process that has no end, then I call it endlessness. Because it's a kind of category that in our world is hard to understand, because it's in relation to us. But really what endlessness is, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, it is unfolded as the quality of the Creator, for He is endless. In our world, of course, there's no such thing, because studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, still living in this world, starting to feel the upper world, entering it, starting to feel its boundaries, and therefore our world, to that person who studies Kabbalah, becomes very limited, small, I'd say even ignoble, and the upper life for that person really becomes the world of endlessness, but not in and of itself, because there you have the worlds, degrees, sefirot, etc., not because of that, but because it leads to the state of endlessness. Okay, so in conclusion, what would you advise? We have this first part of the study of the Ten Sefirot. It is the first time that you talk about these things in Russian. What would you advise how to prepare for the next lesson? We read just one item from the Tree of Life and a few items that explain what is written there. there by Baal HaSulam. Well, I think that's how it will go. Yeah, but what, to read it again for students? Of course. I think that it's necessary to read it several times to try and understand it, somehow absorb it, feel it through, and that's how it will advance. By the way, this book in Russian, the study of the Ten Sefirot, besides ARI and Baal HaSulam, there's also your explanation given some time ago, 15, 20 years ago, so everything that we talked about, you can also read there. Okay, thank you very much, and until next time, all the best.